It's ridiculous how long these things take to make. We started developing the film internally it was probably about like 4 or 5 years ago, while we were partway through production on Coraline. And then the actual production took about 2 years.
You know, we talk about it as John Carpenter meets John Hughes. And there was something very rich about that. I wanted to play in that world. So over the years when I was working on other projects, I kept going back in there.
I know that I'm incredibly biased, of course, with stop motion, but I feel like I can tell the difference with them touching these puppets and moving them, and that the animation is just more, it's more special, it's more natural, it's more lifelike, it's a little more charming, you know, maybe than some of the alternatives we see in CG.
Yeah, and you're right, it's a one-shot deal, you know, like these guys go into their sets and they perform these shots. They are performers, these animators, and it's a one-time moment, you know, I mean, it takes a long time, but we capture that piece of performance, and it's unrepeatable.
It's common to start a production and not know what the ending is. And the story team is, while production is going on, is figuring out the third act, you know, trying new ideas. We didn't have that approach on this. We had a fairly, you know, the script was pretty much locked, which I think was really useful to us because it gave us the opportunity to sit down at the very beginning. We knew where we were headed. We knew what the ending of the movie was, and we knew the tone of the movie because of that. And it enabled us to sit down and really get on the same page about the aesthetic and have a lot of conversation about the overall look of the movie. And sometimes I think, you know, you don't get as much opportunity to spend time doing that at the beginning because you're still busily trying to figure out the story.
Yeah.
We are incredibly prepared because you only get one chance really to shoot the shot. So, you know, it's this incredible series of details that we get right, so that on the day that when, you know, the animator is there shooting, or let's say really the year that he might be shooting or she might be shooting, it's right. So the details like the ear, you know, we did a lot of research and development with those materials and found out that, you know, light would shine through in a really realistic and beautiful way.
It's not like a live action film where you can go to a prop house and just grab something and put it in the movie. We have to build everything from the ground up. Nothing exists. And so then it becomes, because, you know, we work on a small scale. Norman, he's about, you know, 9.5 inches tall.
That's what I was going to ask you.
So you have to find, you know, the right sorts of materials in that world. Like, he wears denim jeans, but you couldn't use real denim for his jeans. The thread would give it away. So you have to find really thin materials and then treat them screen them, print them in such a way that makes them feel and look like denim. But, you know, his hair, it was made out of goat hair. You find these really weird materials to end up using for these things. The trees, that forest of trees, those things were all made out of corrugated cardboard. And shredded paper was the ground cover. So it's a bunch of just really interesting uses of regular materials that we then treat in such a way to make it feel like it lives naturally in this world.
The scary side of it is something that I think we're responsible about because it's something that we consider every day of production. It's in our minds, you know, because the slightest thing can overturn the balance. And even from just way back, the writing point of view, it wasn't to make a horror movie for kids. It was to make this kind of supernatural adventure that references horror motifs and uses them and actually turns them on their head. But having said that, I think we all strongly believe that, you know, scary stuff, more challenging stuff, it should be part of children's fiction. You know, children's fiction has a rich tradition of, you know, scary, challenging elements. And I think, you know, there's a purpose to that. It's nothing new, you know, it goes back to fairy tales. And certainly the kids' movies that I grew up watching, the ones that had the biggest impact on my brain was, you know, I remember watching Pinocchio and being scared by it.
You can't generalize about kids, I don't think. Rather, like, you can't generalize about people, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah,
they are incredibly complex and sophisticated creatures, and we never wanted to talk down to kids in this movie.
No, and I think that's the critical thing, is that we certainly are not we don't want to traumatize our audience, but we also don't want to speak down to them. We want to respect their intelligence and their sophistication. And when you go back to the great family films in history, things like Snow White, they were able to find, or Pinocchio, they were able to find a really perfect balance of darkness and light, of intensity and warmth. And I think by having those two kind of polar things, that dynamic, you're able to tell a more powerful, more enriching story. And by kind of evening those levels out, by if you're worried about traumatizing the audience, it's like it just ultimately, I think it's defeating on making the most powerful story you can.